Okay, Pierre, let's start from the very beginning. What are your first memories of playing football?
I think it's going back to do you say kindergarten? I remember that's the first time I started to realize that even just to kick against the wall, to get it back, is something fun. And I would maybe be 4 years old. My father would be, a big playmate in these days. He would always go in goal, and we would go to, let's say, a pro ground. But during the weekend, when there wasn't a training or there wasn't a game, we would climb the fence and we would go on these amazing pitches and starting to kick on one goal, you know. We went on the bike and went around the neighborhood where I lived, and we found a goal or a park, and I could stand there for hours and shoot.
And then, of course, you'll have joined clubs. You played for clubs back at home. Can you remember how that came about?
I think I was 5 or 6. I was always playing with the year above me and 2 years older, because I wanted really to start with my brother. I didn't want to start alone. And then eventually he stopped, and I just continued in that age group. I was for sure the youngest one, and it gave me a bit of an edge, you know. I always had to defend myself.
Let's talk about your dream move. I imagine when you were 17, you went to Bayern Munich.
We had it was a derby, and I remember that a scout from Bayern Munich came. He went to my father in half time, and he said, "Don't go after the game, I need to speak to you." And after the game, quick they spoke, and 6 months later I moved my whole life to Germany.
How hard was that at such a young age?
I was there in the airport. My mother and father was there. They drove me. When I stood on those, rolling stairs, and I was waving them, and I went up. I could easily have cried at that time, you know, easily. But I stayed strong, and because I was looking for the opportunity ahead. And I'm very grateful that I actually did it, because I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about this football world that I always somehow dreamed of. I remember it was difficult for my mother. My father thought it was a nice challenge, but he told me that I had to do the school. I had to continue in the school. That was the only deal that we made, which I never did, but let's not go there. And I sacrificed a lot, because with 16, almost 17, going out of the country, just leaving your comfort zone and your friends behind, does touches you a bit, you know.
It then got a lot harder a year or so later, didn't it, for both you and your family?
No, obviously with the illness of my father came just 1 year after I left the house. I remember actually getting injured in beginning of August. So I thought that, my life is finished, you know, I can't play for a couple of weeks, everything is really bad. And a couple of days later, my father calls me, and, you know, really difficult for him to speak, you know, and he was very quiet and not saying any words, but staying on the phone. And then, like you do, you ask, what's wrong, you know? And he say, it's not good, you know, and he had cancer, and I remember being very sad, you know, like really sad, and then feeling also frustrated. I was angry because I was so far away from home, and it puts everything in perspective. In Denmark works like this, that you get healthcare for free, which is fantastic, but in this case they would try and just, extend his life, maybe not try and
cure him.
I will be forever grateful to Bayern Munich, because they helped me a lot. And I spoke to them, and they said, okay, come to Munich, and we find a solution there. And he came to Munich over 6 times of around 10 days, where he got his chemotherapy. What makes me sleep better at night is that the best time I actually had with my father was that time. Because I left home, and I remember we had some discussion, because I wouldn't always call back. I wouldn't always maybe be so alert on what was happening at home. I was doing a bit my own life, you know, that you're doing with 17. You think you know everything. But then when he came, I could really show him that I knew how to take care of myself, and I could take care of him, and I could show him that I am actually becoming a man, you know. And we had some great talks, we had some difficult talks, some that will stay with me forever, and also sometimes some that they hurt me a bit, because I would love for him to be here today. But the only thing that was for me, how you say, hard, was I always tried to be strong. I never put a sad face in front of him, and I paid for that later on in my life a bit, because I held so much back, you know. My father would always take care of me, you know, and then suddenly I had to take care of him. I was cooking for him, I was putting him in bed, I was making sure he got his medication and all these things. And these things, they scar you a bit, you know. Yeah, it didn't go as we hoped, obviously. He passed away in around April. I finished the season, I played the cup final, I got my national team debut. So it was a season from sports perspective really finishing on a high, but life perspective really finishing on a low finishing. I had difficult to motivate myself. It's the first time actually I speak about it like this, but I had that for a couple of years, where I just didn't find the real purpose until actually I got my daughter. I remember saying to my mother when I got my daughter, I said, finally the life gave me something back, you know. My kids are everything, no? I will do everything for them.
Why do you play football?
I do it because my heart is 100% in it, and this is for me the most important thing. And I'm not afraid to say, the day I don't love to play football anymore, I will stop. To look myself in the mirror, that when I stop, I know that I pushed until there was nothing left, and I took the best out of everything.
Does a lot of that come from your dad as well, and everything you went through?
Yeah, it does. It does. Sometimes I know my wife speaks to my mother, and she say, yeah, but today he's not really, or he's a bit like this, or he did this. I know that. I've seen that before with his father, you know. He is with me a lot, you know, in everything I do, and he gives me inspiration, like my family does, like my kids does, you know. So they are with me. I truly believe a lot, not just in football, but in life. What you are giving to the life, what you are giving to the people around you, the sacrifices you make, you will get it back. Sometimes I also say to myself, yeah, I didn't make it in Bayern. On the other side, I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't have almost 3 years in the school of, I always call it the school of champions.
Is that what you want to become at Spurs, a champion?
Yes, that's the dream in a Spurs shirt, 100%. To lift the trophies, in my opinion, we have the tools, no, the ingredients. It's just to find the right way and to do it. The mindset this year will be a really important one, because there will be a break with the World Cup, and there will be many games, and there will be a tough schedule. So I think mentally this year you have to be strong. But for me personally, every year I'm improving. And this is something that I'm proud of, but also something I will not stop to do. I hope when we speak again in May or June, that,
I'll come back if you're a champion.
That, okay, that it's with a medal around the neck.